Welcome back to Tech Talks. Today we'll be covering push movements, my favorite movement pattern, and we're so excited to just touch base on it.
Yeah, Kim. So what are your favorite push movements in the gym?
So obviously for me, the king of push movements is bench press. I love me a bench press, and that's just because I'm good at it. You always like what you're really good at. But second to that, I do love incline dumbbell press, and for tricep as an accessory, I do love me some scalp crushers.
Oh, nice.
What about you? What's your favorite?
I am not a fan of push movements. No, so I mean, obviously, just it's not that I don't enjoy them. I just have a lot of working around to do in push movements with the wonky shoulder. But if I had to say, definitely, an incline dumbbell press for me is always been a favorite. I do tend to prefer the dumbbell movements. Gives me a lot more freedom in terms of playing around with the position of my elbows to get a comfortable press out. Obviously, a lot of barbell movements, it's a very fixed position, which makes the amount of adjustments I can make for the comfort of the shoulder a little bit tougher. And then probably just because I'm generally relatively weak in push movements. So, it takes a bit of self-talk to get me motivated enough to do something about it.
Oh, yeah, I think for me, push movements under the bar is great. And I think it's just like even overhead work, I love it. Now, I don't like the dumbbell work because I hate having to focus on stability. I'm lazy. Even though I enjoy the movement, the stability aspect is really something that puts me off. And I think that, again, ties into what you said last week, that, strength work is a skill work. And that's why it requires a lot of stability work.
Hundreds. And then when we look at push work with regards to variations, well, first of all, let's do the initial split. When it comes to push patterns, we break it down into two. There's horizontal push and vertical push. You can basically just essentially, if you want to work in muscle groups, horizontal push, pec-based, vertical push, delt-based, and obviously your triceps are accessories to both movements. And then again, the variations we use, we go according to, where, let's say if we're using bench press as the baseline, where do we see we are faltering on bench? And then you can use your something as simple as your grip. How narrow or wide your grip is to bias what you're recruiting. So you can choose to go for a much wider grip in order to incorporate a lot more pec function, as well as decreasing the range of motion in order to press the most amount of weight. So then we can then move into narrow grip variations, in which place a little bit more stress on delts, a little bit more stress on triceps. So let's say, for example, the initial press off of your bench is really good, and you find that at a lockout point you're starting to battle. A good thing to incorporate is some narrow grip work in order just to boost your tricep strength, so that the extension of the form, which is kind of what we use the tricep for, is increasing in strength. We can make use of pause bench, as well as eccentric controls, or like tempo-based bench, if we're trying to cause any kind of overload in terms of stimulus for hypertrophy, as well as control. So again, control of that bar is really important. It's all good and well having a lot of power, but if that power also comes with instability, you can find that it kind of goes wrong pretty quickly. So again, going back to the skill component from a positional point of view, that's where I tend to find things like pauses and eccentric and tempo work comes in handy. I really enjoy pause and tempo work for hypertrophy blocks as well. It's a good way of balancing, getting more volume done and not having as much load on the bar. So especially if you're trying to focus on strength, obviously, joints and everything take a bit of time to get taxed by that. And at that point, so then using tempo work or pause work is one way that you can push a higher rep range and reduce the amount of weight in the bar because of that added stress factor. And then obviously overhead push work, press work, really important. At the same time, a delicate balance. A large portion of your horizontal push work uses a fair bit of delt and a fair bit of tricep. So you don't need to go absolutely ham on your overhead press work, but 100% delt strength is really important for your push work. Then outside of your bar work, dumbbell variations, really great. So dumbbell variations, and especially if you're a fan of strength training, A lot of strength training, again, is trying to move as much weight as possible, but position your body in a way that you're moving it through as little of a range of motion as needed. Obviously, there are those that take it to the absolute extreme where it no longer looks like a bench press. But for the most part, there will be cues you follow in order to have that bar travel, yes, maybe that half an inch to an inch less. Downside of that means you're also not training a joint through full range of motion. So then, like, I find dumbbell work is a great place to move through a range of motion that your primary and your main lift doesn't normally move you through. So dumbbells is a really great chance for you ever to get a much deeper position, much deeper stretch, and press right through. I think each variation sort of has its place.
If I look at my own training, primary work will always be bar work, so a form of bench press, whether it's a tempo bench, a pause bench, or even a Larsen press. And now, a Larsen press is when your feet's off the floor, so you solely work on your upper body strength to basically push the weight. But second to that, my dumbbell incline press is probably where I get that stability for a really good bench press. I might have one bar exercise, but I have a multitude of dumbbell exercises, and I think that's pretty great. But on that, let's quickly go back to bench pressing, especially in the powerlifting world, right? What's your take on these big arcs? This.
My take on the arch is I don't mind an arch as big as someone can get. I think the arch doesn't bother me so much as the bar travel does. So like, I guess if the arch is at the point where it's compromised, where your elbows don't even go past the shoulder. To me, if your elbows aren't breaking past your shoulders, I don't know. Again, just a personal. I get it's within the rules. Although some federations have caught up with that now.
Yes.
Federations are saying, no, listen, if that elbow doesn't go below the shoulder, we're not counting it as a bench. And I think that's a very fair judgment. Also, time and place. If it's within the sport and within the rules, it doesn't quite matter what my personal opinion is. It's 100%. It's a fair lift. But I do think that, yes, there needs to probably within the powerlifting sport piece, obviously, everyone is going to try and take everything to the extreme to get the edge. I mean, that's the job of any coach, any athlete, is you push the rules to the limit, in order to gain any kind of advantage you can. I think that is when you have to just reassess and look at your sport as a whole. What does it do from a credibility point of view? Is it big enough of a problem to actually enforce some changes, or is it just small pockets? And obviously those small pockets do tend to get the most amount of attention because it's something that stands out relative to the norm. So I think an arch, again, not a problem. When it's so excessive to the point that you don't look at the movement and think, hey, that's a bench press, then I think they have to look at all those factors to combine to put it together.
Because I know the internet's always on debate. Oh, an arch is cheating. That, well, no. Look, I as a powerlifter, I have a very mini arch, and that's purely because I hate the arching position. My arch is not the biggest, but I'm also very broad, and so you don't really see my arch as much as someone who's skinny and smaller. Their arch is significantly more visible.
And some people just also have, in terms of pelvis flexibility, the ability to load themselves like a bow being drawn back. And then some people have the mobility of an ironing board, and that's kind of flat as a pancake, is as good as they're going to get.
So powerlifting guys, let us know what you think. Arch cool, arch not cool. How do you enforce the arch in your own training?
Okay, if you guys have any questions, get hold of us, pop us a message, and we can go to some more detail.
Yeah. And then going forward next week, we're going to cover one of Grant's favorites again, which is the squat.
Yes. A favorite, not a well performance. I don't perform more too well in it, but I do enjoy it.
Yeah, he does like squat work. Me, I don't like it. But we'll cover it regardless because most people want a good booty, and good booties come from squat work.
Squatting, 100%.
Until then, cheers.